Good evening, you're watching Estuary TV News. Coming up, we catch up with athletes training ahead of the Disability Games in Scunthorpe, and we look at what's being done about the white ribbon. And joining me in the studio is the Reverend Canon Peter Mullins, who's here to talk about poetry, ancient and modern. Welcome to Estuary TV News. I'm Hugh Riches. First of all, it's over to Richard Morris for the news headlines.
Hello there. There has been a witnessed attempted robbery of a woman on the junction of Wellington Street and Victor Street in Grimsby. Police are keen to speak to the victim, who so far has not come forward. The attempted robbery took place at around 11:30 on the morning of Tuesday, the 25th of November. Officers would like to check on her welfare and so that she can report the incident. A Grimsby charity is celebrating after winning £50,000. The Rock Foundation was in need of funding when they decided to enter the People's Millions game show, where people vote for which charities they want to give funding. In a head-to-head face-off with a charity from Lincoln, Rock Foundation won. Pamela Hodge, founder of the charity, outlined what the money means to them.
Well, basically, we wanted more resources for our students. And this is a way of being able to open up a complete new world for them, really. And this money is just going to be, wow, I don't think any of us can really say what it's going to mean to them. I don't think words could express it. I think it was just overwhelmed, and it was just great news. You know, it's just what's going to be able to be achieved from that money and from the resources that we're going to be given. It's just incredible. And
you can see more about the Rock Foundation's new funding in Friday's news programme. Danish Church St Nikolai in Hull is busy getting ready for their annual Christmas market. Over 1,000 people are expected to attend tomorrow and Saturday, with doors opening at 3 p.m. We spoke to the Siemens pastor Torben Jorgensen.
It's very busy here every day in this week. People are coming in, volunteering, making their stalls ready for the market. We have a lot of stalls, different stalls, and the whole church. On every floor, we have 3 floors. They are in use every room. These food we are selling here, especially Danish food. And Danish homemade biscuits is very popular. In Christmas time, I think people living abroad, that's the period in the year where they most miss their home country.
That's all from me for now, and we'll be back with more news soon. If in the meantime you have any news for us, then please call us on Grimsby 01472 31553. Bye for now.
Thank you, Richard. The Paralympic Games showed us the capacities and achievements of people with disabilities. Next year, the Rotary Disability Games will be held in Scunthorpe to allow those who wouldn't normally join in to participate in the sports. And reporter Erica Barker has been to a training session to see how preparations are going.
Once a week, people with learning needs and physical disabilities meet at the pods in Scunthorpe. But they are now in training for a very special event. The Rotary Disability Games are to be held in the town in April 2015 and the following year, with the competition winners going forward to the National Disability Games held in Coventry. One of the organisers, Julie Whitelog, says it's great for the area.
A lot of the local organisations connected with disabilities are quite affected by a lot of the budget cuts in the current economic climate, and so we do everything we can as a voluntary organisation to help them in the community and just enjoy a really good day of sport and fun. We'll get a lot of coverage, a lot of sponsorship from local businesses, and raising the awareness of disabilities in particular is very important.
With table tennis, archery and boccia just some of the games on offer, it seems there is something for everyone.
I enjoy the Special Olympics and these sort of games, things like that, because me and my friend we like to get out, and I've just had a go at the archery, but they didn't think I could do it because of my hands, but I did.
It's because I live on my own in Brigg and it's a bit isolated from me, so it's nice for me to come out this afternoon and meet different people.
It brings people all together from different areas.
It'll do Scunthorpe good. There's a lot of people more disabled than I am. And I can tell you, I hope and pray I'll still be able to do sport myself in years to come.
And who knows, in this sports hall we could be looking at the stars of the future.
You're watching Estuary TV News. Coming up, it's Dog of the Week. Can you give this dog a home? And Dan Kemp will bring you the sports news. A book of poems has been produced to raise money for St Andrew's Hospice here in Grimsby. The compilation has been put together by the Reverend Canon Peter Mullins of St Michael's Church in Littlecoats, and it's called Carly's Song and Other Poems. Peter, thank you very much for coming in. It's a beautifully produced volume. It's a lovely thing. It's a work of art in its own right. Carly's Songs. Who is Carly?
Carly was a Earl of Orkney, an adventurer from Norway, about 1200. And the Orkney-Inga saga, one of the great Norse sagas, records his adventures, but also records poems he's supposed to have written.
And the Orkney-Inga saga is particularly valuable to this part of the world because it's the first literary mention of Grimsby.
Yes, and there's one of his poems talks about being stuck in the mud here, and it's the first one I've translated. It's the first one in the book is a version of that.
Have you translated the whole saga? Because they're large works, aren't
I'm
they?
afraid not, no. I just play around the edges, but I enjoy doing it.
And what is it about this mid-medieval, this high medieval Scandinavian wonderful poetry? What is it that attracts you?
Well, some of it is almost like doing crosswords. They don't allow themselves to use words like woman or weapon or sea or ship. They'll use a phrase like a crossword clue.
Well, if I may, could I ask you to read one of them that demonstrates exactly what you just said?
Well, that first poem we were talking about. Yes, they don't say sea. They talk about the mound, the moor that the gull crosses. And they don't talk about a boat. He talks about riding on the back of an elk. So when he's let loose from this mud and allowed finally to go home, I've got him bounding across the moor on elk back. But that's because that's what the original said.
If you read us a poem, we can hear the Earl's words.
We'd wasted 5 weeks waiting, our feet festering in filth, mired in mud in the middle of Grimsby, grimly grounded. Now, let loose, we laugh aloud on the gull's moor's mounds, mounted on elk back, bounding breakers, our bow's beak set on Bergen.
Well, beautifully translated. It just makes a wonderful noise apart from anything else, doesn't it?
That's the nice bit about rhythm and about poetry.
The first, that Viking or that Scandinavian connection, of course, the connection between the Humber and Orkney doesn't seem very obvious unless you remember that they're a very maritime people.
Indeed. The North Sea is the M25 of its day. People will go round and round it. It's difficult going across land. You'll get stuck every time you do it. You hit the mud in Grimsby and it doesn't get any further. But racing up and down the North Sea is the most natural thing to do. If you want to get past the body of land in front of you, if you don't go through the English Channel, it's the Orkneys you'll go by. It's the Piccadilly Circus of its day. That's how he ends up there.
Chilly and wet travelling work, I would imagine. That's the first part of the book, is the Scandinavian saga, the Orkney-Inga. You've also put in there Orpheus and Eurydice.
I'd recently tried to have a translation of that. There's a German poet 110 years ago who rendered a very different version of it, and I rewrote a version that tries to track exactly his German words, but actually picks up a very different sense of mental health, bereavement, dementia going on in our community. So I've imagined Eurydice not as disappearing back into hell, but disappearing into her own dementia, and is losing her there as much as any other way.
Well, at least Eurydice came back for 6 months of the year.
Well, he's imagining her coming back and finding that he's looked back over his shoulder, and of course that's what he was told not to do when trying to rescue her, and she disappears back again.
It's always a very sad tale, that one. And sorry to break the book up into sections, rather crudely, but the final part is a selection of poems of your own original work, which are they religious? Are they devotional?
They mainly are. And actually, it is the last part of the book. It's the first bit I did. I mean, I've been playing with words for a long time and write a lot of very bad religious poetry. But
It's not for you to judge.
But by good luck, occasionally one of them is better. And so when putting the book together, some of the few that are actually worth sharing and others have liked have ended up in the back half.
Well, there's a great tradition of clergyman poets going back to John Donne, I suppose. That's the movement you're in. just tell us, it's beautifully illustrated. Just mention the artist.
The book itself is, I'm really pleased with how it's come out. We approached the Grimsby Institute and they found one of their really talented students in the art department doing her BA at the moment. And she's reacted to each poem and produced a picture.
I think you should name her. She
Yes,
should get...
yes. Emily Connor, her name is.
Right.
She's there on the front. And she was here at the launch a few days ago and showed everybody some of the plates that she had carved into to make from which the printing took place.
And if you just hold the book up to camera,
Yes.
Peter, just so that we can see it, where can people get it?
Right, well, it's out on Amazon, and we're hoping very soon Smiths and Waterstones will have it. But it's being sold in aid of the hospice, and people can get some of them via them.
In this part of the world, every charity seems to be taken over by St Andrew's Hospice. I mean, it's a very wonderful cause, of course,
Yes.
and you can tell me more about it than
Yeah.
I know, but it does seem to dominate, doesn't it?
It dominates in many ways. One of the things that strikes me about it, I know many different groups who have volunteers. There's only two groups I know who have hundreds of volunteers. One of them is Lincoln Cathedral, and the other is St Andrew's Hospice in Grimsby. That there is something that this community feels about what it is trying to do that has really caught the imagination. So it's happened with volunteers as well as with different fundraising efforts.
And how long have you been involved with the hospice? I suppose as a local clergyman, a lot of your parishioners go there.
Yeah, I'm occasionally have been involved, and at one point between the appointment of chaplains, I went and did some cover in there as well.
Peter,
So
I must stop you there. Thank you very much. Good luck with the book, and I think it'll be a great success. I hope so.
thank you.
In another new weekly feature, we talk to people within a community to find out what's happening. Our first guest is Terry Marsden, Chairman of Kirmington and Croxton Parish Council.
We're quite an active council. We've recently redeveloped the playing field in the village. We have quite an association with the school, but the main association is with Humberside International Airport, which was formerly Royal Air Force Kirmington. Royal Air Force Kirmington headquarters were actually in the village of Kirmington, and the airport before, say, was an RAF station. The connection at the moment is that we are trying to plan the village to be twinned with a small village just outside of Rotterdam called Tegaba, which is where the squadron, which was 166 Squadron, which was based at Kirmington with Lancasters, dropped food to the starving Dutch. In the winter of 1944 to 45, it was a very severe winter in Holland. It was still occupied by the Germans, and they blocked all road transport. So the only way they could supply the Dutch with food was by the canals. In that winter, the canals froze over, so therefore there was no food getting through to the starving Dutch people. A lot of them sadly died. The Air Force were asked if they could drop food with Lancasters, and the 166 Squadron based at Royal Air Force Kirmington was one of the squadrons that did the food drop. The squadron carried out the drops between the 29th of April 1945 and the 5th of May. So the 70th anniversary is coming in next year, and we are provisionally arranging to twin Kirmington with the village of Tegeberg in Holland, just outside Rotterdam, as part of that 70th anniversary.
What other events can we expect?
Well, we're planning other events in the village. We're going to invite the Dutch people back to Kirmington in September next year, and to celebrate the 166 Squadron and the events. So it'll be a two-way twinning. The two schools are getting very much involved, and they'll be setting up video links to the schools. We will be entertaining the Dutch people in Kirmington, and they hope to will be entertaining us when we go across there in April.
Domestic violence is an issue that people are reluctant to talk about, but in North Lincolnshire, that's something they're trying to change. In 2013, there were 334 incidents of domestic abuse reported, 95% of them against women. Now the county has launched the White Ribbon campaign, which aims to stop domestic abuse by educating men about acceptable behaviour and healthy relationships. The council, Andrew Percy MP, the police, North Lincolnshire Homes and even Scunthorpe United are all on board with the campaign. Reporter James Dunn went along to the launch to find out more.
It may surprise you to know that women between 19 and 44 are more likely to suffer domestic abuse than to contract cancer or be involved in a car accident. And it's the extent of this threat to public health that's forced officials to take action.
I'd spent a number of shifts with Humberside Police over the last year or so, and a number of those were with the instant response team, who are the people who respond to 999 calls. And I was quite staggered at just how many of those call-outs were to domestic violence incidents. And one we went to was a girl who was, well, a young lady in her maybe early mid-20s who'd been beaten up by her partner again. I was surprised when she told us it wasn't the first or second time, but actually the 40th or 50th. She'd lost count. You know, she had a busted nose. It was truly awful. But she said she had a child who's 4, and she said he's now started hitting her.
And the impact it has on people's lives is profoundly far-reaching.
Domestic abuse not only has a devastating effect on the life of the individual, but a ripple effect across the whole of the family, affecting the children as well. It's about power and control, and it's about one individual's power and control over another individual and affecting the whole of their life.
But a campaign has now been launched to make North Lincolnshire a white ribbon county. It hopes to recruit male ambassadors to promote healthy relationships and prevent violence against women. And that's why Scunthorpe United is backing the campaign.
I think sometimes footballers don't appreciate just how much people do follow everything that they do on and off the field. And I think there is an opportunity to get the message out there. People do listen and look up to footballers, and so if they're saying all the right things, then people will hopefully take note and follow them.
Now here's the sport with Dan Kemp.
Scunthorpe United have completed the signing of young Chelsea defender Alex Davey until January the 3rd. The 20-year-old Scotland under-19 international is yet to make his competitive debut for the London club and joins up with the Iron ahead of the weekend's trip to Barnsley. He's welcome to United along with Rotherham fullback Richard Brindley, who arrived earlier in the week. Both are expected to be in Saturday's squad. In boxing, Kev Super Hooper is in action this weekend. He goes into his fight with Darlington's Neil Hepper, knowing a win in their fight will enable him to have another crack at the English title. His fight takes place on Saturday at the Doncaster Dome against Hepper, who has lost 3 of his last 9 fights. In snooker, Grimsby's Stuart Carrington has been knocked out of the UK World Championships by Nigel Bond. The defeat in the first round of the tournament in York saw Bond take a 4-0 lead, but Carrington fought back, eventually losing by 6 frames to 3. Bond will now face Barry Hawkins in the second round. And finally, Hull Kingston Rovers released their new away strip tonight. It will have a City of Culture 2017 theme, and the Chief Executive of Hull City of Culture Company, Martin Green, will be on hand to help with the reveal along with local playwright John Godber. And one further line of KR news is that the club have confirmed they will play with Warrington Wolves in the pre-season friendly for the Chris Bridge testimonial. The fixture will be on Saturday the 25th of January with a 3:30 p.m. kickoff. It will come ahead of the season curtain raiser against Leeds Rhinos. And that's all for the sport.
Now, in another new weekly feature, we visit Sangreet Kennels to see who needs to find a new home.
It's not easy finding someone to take on a Staffordshire Bull Terrier without knowing its history. This one has neither a home or even a name, but you could help.
He has been rehomed once. We do know that he doesn't like other dogs. Obviously the thing there is to keep him away from other dogs. If you have to do, muzzle him when you're around out. But apart from that, he seems house trained in the kennel. He doesn't chew. You know, he just needs another chance.
It's a busy period here in December, and for many of these dogs, the countdown to Christmas means something very different to what it means to you or I.
If somebody doesn't take them on, we do get to desperate measures where we get in touch with the Dogs Trust. They'll probably come along and take some offers, but obviously they're in the same boat as us at this time of the year when it's coming to Christmas period. At the end of the day, if we have to put the dogs to sleep, we have to put the dogs to sleep, and that's a fact of life.
And remember, a dog is for life, not just for Christmas. There's just time to read out some more of your messages that you've been sending in via social media. Amy Hyde in Hull says, On the Bench is the best because of Stingray's only channel I know that is local and supporting all local teams. How can you support all the local teams? Peter Hughes in Scunthorpe says, the best programme content-wise is either On the Bench or Unsigned Transmissions. Jason Nielsen here in Grimsby, I like On the Bench and On the Bench Extra, plus the news. Thank you. Honestly, I'm not biased towards On the Bench just because I was on episode 2 of the first series. It's a good show. I think you are biased. Conrad Broughton in Scunthorpe says, I like On the Bench. Everybody likes On the Bench. Who selected these? It shows local sports, plus I was on the launch programme. Scunthorpe VX Club. That might be a misprinted Roman numeral. Any programme that shows local sports in our communities has to get a plus every time. Love to see more and more follow-ups too of past shows. Kieran Windy Miller of Grimsby says, I love that Friday show, as I always see friends on there. Also, I was once on it with the Air Cadets and got interviewed. I hope we've got more people watching than we have actually coming onto the programmes on Estuary TV. And Kirsty Bald in Grimsby says, no, 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 Unsigned Transmissions is the best as it allows you to experience different types of music from local bands. And Graham Oxby says, On the Bench, local sports for local people, simple. Does nobody watch Hot Topic? Join me tomorrow when my guest will be Sam Whitaker, who on his Twitter profile describes himself as 3 times Ironman triathlete. We'll have to go now. Please contact us in the usual ways via estuary.tv, email, that's Facebook and via Twitter, or pick up the telephone and call us on 01472 31 5561. And I hope that you'll come back and join us to watch the news again this time tomorrow. Until then, I'll see you then. Goodbye.
Hello and welcome to Estuary TV's weather. Mainly cloudy and breezy on Friday, with some rain or drizzle at times. Bright spells are possible in the south later, with a maximum temperature of 11 degrees. Largely cloudy Saturday, with periods of occasional drizzle, mist and fog, with a maximum temperature of 10 degrees.